again, my name is Drew Williams. I am the marketing manager for Kobiton, and I just wanted to thank you all again for joining our product webinar today titled Perfect Mobile Experiences for Quality Obsessed Customers. Again, this is a Kobiton Deminar, which means we are doing a combination between a product demo and a webinar. And I stated this earlier, but I'll state it one more time, that we will be accepting questions throughout the actual demo process in hopes that this will be somewhat of an audience-driven demo. Again, the conversation will be very informal, so please feel free at any point to contribute questions, comments, or concerns, and we'll try to address them in a timely fashion before the webinar time runs out. In addition, we'll also have a few minutes for questioning at the very end. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first two panelists. We've got Mr. Frank Moyer, the CTO from Kobiton, and Clay Montgomery, the Kobiton account executive. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Clay.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great Tuesday. Thanks, Drew, for passing that over. As Drew mentioned, my name is Clay Montgomery. I'm one of the account executives at Kobiton, and I'm going to walk you guys through a little bit of the product. As Drew mentioned, we want this to be fairly free-flowing, so we may have some folks on our side kind of jump in and add some color to some of the things that I'm speaking about, and as well, at any point during the webinar, feel free to chat questions, whatever it may be. We'll stop in between. We want this to be fairly interactive and fairly entertaining as well. So just to kick things off, I want to give you a little bit of background on Kobiton and kind of why we came about and where we came from. So as it says at the top, Kobiton is a comprehensive platform for all your mobile testing needs. Essentially Kobiton is a mobile testing platform that allows you to do both manual and automation testing. What you may think to yourself, why is Kobiton around? You may know that today, but it really has to do with the exponential growth of just the mobile landscape overall. I was talking to some of my colleagues here before we kicked things off about 10 years ago, we all had a phone in our pocket, or maybe not even all of us, but the phone essentially made phone calls, maybe some text messaging if you hadn't run out of text messages and racking up bills or something of that nature. And then 5 years ago, it was phone calls, it was text message, a little bit of internet surfing, and now today they're essentially attached to our hip. And every company out there has an application or has a responsive website that is geared towards mobile, because that is where the vast majority of the traffic comes from. So in saying that, that is why Kobiton now exists. So our parent company is a company called KMS Technology. KMS Technology is a product and software development company, both here in the US and in Vietnam. There are around 800 or so employees. And part of KMS Technology is an incubator. That incubator's goal is to really look at the current KMS customers, look at the landscape of just overall, most specifically QA and software development markets, and see if there's any needs out there that need to be filled or are not being fully filled by competitors and solutions that are already in the market. So far today, KMS has started 3 different companies. One is a company called QA Symphony. They have a tool called Q-Test that a lot of you may be familiar with. They were actually recently merged with Tricentis. Another tool out in the market is a tool called Catalan Studio. Catalan Studio is a free tool out in the market and has great adoption right now. So some of you guys may be familiar with that as well. I think they have 100,000 or so users. And then most recent is Kobiton, which is what we're going to share with you guys today. So I'll touch across the bottom a little bit, and then I'll jump into an actual manual test session. But Kobiton is a mobile testing platform, and we are all real devices. So Kobiton is around 350 or so real Android and iOS devices. We have various Android manufacturers. For iOS, we have a wide variety of not only iOS devices, but also OS version from iOS 9 up to the new 12 beta. There's a few different offerings with Kobiton. One of the things that we think really differentiates us is the flexibility of the platform. So we have our public cloud, which is those devices that I just touched on. So 350 or so devices that you can go in, you can use, and those are on sort of a per minute on a shared basis. We also have our local cloud. The local cloud allows you as a customer to connect your own devices. So that can work for a few different ways. You can connect your own device so that you can share those for dispersed workforces around your company, and also connecting devices you've already made an investment in so that they're now connected 24/7 to fully support automation testing or CI/CD integration. And then also our private cloud offering, which is we would procure devices for you that will be private for your organization and can be utilized by your organization only. And really, one of the keys of Kobiton is all of these different options are available in a single browser window and also through our Open REST API. So you don't have to pick one or another with Kobiton. We feel like, testing isn't a super rigid exercise. It needs some flexibility to it. So that's what we try to give you. And then with all of these, you have the same consistent reporting as well. So screenshots, video, device logs, automation logs if you're doing automation testing is with every test session you perform. And then a new offering we have is our Kobiton Health Check. Frank's going to touch on that a little bit later on, but it's essentially a service that we're now offering to our customers to help you, really expand and expedite some of your testing, or even fill that gap between manual testing and automation testing as you make that transition. And so now I'm going to jump in and show you guys a manual test session. It's going to be fairly short and straightforward because I know we're trying to be cautious of time here, and I don't want to bore you guys to death with it, with making you listen to me talk all day. But some of the things that are really key to our manual testing is highly responsive and lightning fast with minimal latency. So the biggest complaint we constantly heard from our customers and our prospects were manual testing on a browser is great in theory, but when I make a click and it takes 5 seconds for it to click, and a 5-minute test takes me a half hour, the benefits of being able to access those devices quickly are then sort of dumbed down by just the pure pain of the process. So I'm going to go through and show you guys that, and then at the same time, I'll touch on some of the abilities for us to connect with VPNs, and also show you some of the reporting as well. So give us just a second. We'll hop out of here and hop into Kobiton. So when you come into Kobiton, this is the first page that we brought into, and I'm not going to go through the whole platform. Like I said, I'll do a quick manual test session, and then I'll show you some of the reporting on the back end. But when I come into Kobiton, as I mentioned, you first see our public cloud devices. If I scroll down, you'll see we have a pretty wide variety of hardware, a bunch of Galaxy devices. You'll then get into the different tablets, so Galaxy tabs, iPads, all the different iOS devices. Then if I keep going down, you'll get into the other Android devices as well. Everything's in alphabetical order. So you then have the LG devices, Moto devices, Nexus, OnePlus, Pixels, etc. But if I come in here and if I just want to launch one of these devices quickly, I can scroll back up and we'll grab one of the Galaxy devices. If I come up and just say I grab this Galaxy A7 here, I can highlight this device, and as quickly as that, I can begin the manual test session. There's no need to pre-upload any of your apps or anything of that nature. We allow you to go in, select the device that you need, and then you have full control over it. So as you saw, it took the device maybe 10 seconds or so to pop up. So this is part of that latency and fast reaction and things like that we're talking about, because you don't want to sit there for 2 minutes and stare at a screen saying, don't worry, the device is loading.
And then Clay, on the previous screen that showed all the devices, does everybody see all those devices? How does that work?
Yes, so trial usually, if you come into Kobiton, we do offer a free trial. So when you come in there, you will be able to see a small subset of our devices. I think about 20 to 25 is in our typical trial. But if you become a paid Kobiton user, yes, you'll have access to all those devices that were available there. Any private or local devices you connect would just be in addition to those.
Okay.
Yeah. And once you're inside the device, you treat it just as you would a device in hand. So if I click and swipe over, the device clicks and swipes over. If I click and swipe back, it swipes back. If I pop open apps and I want to go into one of these applications, I can do so as well. We also have some of the different hot buttons and things over here. But if I want to go in and say start a quick responsive web test, I can come in here and I can search for our parent company, KMS Technology. And as you see there, a few of the cool features we have is when you're typing, you don't necessarily have to, peck on the keyboard down here, because that can be very painstaking as well. We do allow you to just use your keyboard. When you're in here, you can act as you would on a normal phone. You can click and drag down, and you see it's fairly smooth. We want it to be as close to a real device as possible. I can also use my trackpad as well to scroll. And then from here, you can really do any responsive web test. If you did want to upload an application or download an application onto this device, you would come to the app section over here in the top right. I'm actually using my colleague Drew's computer right now. He doesn't have any apps uploaded because, as everyone knows, I started the webinar today, and of course my computer is not acting like it should. So if anything can go wrong, it will. But here you would be able to download any of the apps. You would have here, it would say, whatever app it may be. If it was the KMS app, it's the Kobiton app, whatever, and you would just hit install, and that app would install from there.
I think it's I think it's important to understand this is a real device. A lot of times people will see this and it's so fast. People think it's a local emulator or simulator. This is a real device that you are connected to and you're interacting with, which is quite phenomenal at the speed at which it responds. And then you'll see afterwards on the reporting side, all of this is being captured.
Yep, exactly. And if anyone thinks these are simulators or emulators, feel free. We can show you a private demo later, and I often set up webcams and things like that so that the device that I'm controlling on the Kobiton screen is completely connected to a different machine across the room from me. And you see, like, as soon as you swipe down, it swipes down. As soon as you click on something, it clicks on something. It's pretty cool, and it's compelling. And then over to the right side, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we have some hotkeys where you can take a screenshot. As I mentioned earlier, for literally every gesture that I'm doing, a screenshot is being taken. There's also being a full video taken. There is also device logs as well, but if you do need to take a screenshot, you can. We also support pinch to zoom, rotate the landscape. You can spoof the device location. You can change the device time zone. And then below that are some of just the native functionalities: power up, power down, recent apps, home button, back button. And then over here to the right side, you can customize any of this. So Deminar, Kobiton demo, I guess. Yeah, and then, or Kobiton, yeah. And then below that, you can also add a description if you would like. But from here, this is what I want to show you guys. I didn't want to spend a lot of time in this. But now if I come down here and I exit this device, it'll take me back to that devices page. And then, as I mentioned earlier, about the VPN and also the rich reporting, we do allow for a VPN connection to these devices. So we have some different tunneling options. We also have in our private devices, we can set up VPNs and proxies and things like that, because we understand that not everything is in a production environment.
One thing on the spoofing the location I wanted to come back to is you can connect with the local cloud solution. You can actually connect your device in physically disparate locations, so you can test the performance and catch video of what the application feels like in other countries. Yep,
exactly. Especially if you have an app that a lot of apps these days are location based, whether it's a retail app or whether it's a ride sharing app or whatever. That is a key functionality of a lot of apps these days, is knowing where a person is. So if it's in one static location all the time, it's not as compelling. You need to move it around and make sure that's working. And then just quickly want to touch on the reporting side. So if I go to this sessions tab up here that I just clicked on, you'll see that the Deminar of the Kobiton demo is down here. If I click on this, in here is where you'll have all your reporting information. So you can see that it took 4 minutes and 24 seconds. The device that it was completed on, all the way down to the UDID. So if you do have an issue, you can go out and find that exact same device and know that you're trying to replicate that issue. Also, all the different screenshots, as I mentioned, is going through for every touch and action. And then we also have full video of that test session, and then also the different logs. And all of this is available for download, but also you can simply just share this URL up here with your dev team, with your product team, whatever it may be, to highlight some of these things. But I'll let the guys here comment on if they have anything else. If not, I think we're going to move over to the automation side of things, but just want to make sure there's not any questions from the group here or any of the attendees. For you guys, oh, sorry, I think we had muted. I'm gonna do a quick automation test for you guys. So Drew is going to make me the presenter real quick, because I have a lot of the different automation scripts and things of that nature on my machine. So bear with us for 2 seconds. All right. So as you see here, my instance of Kobiton looks extremely similar to Drew's. I have a few devices up at the top, favorited or things of that nature. But as we know, with the maturity of the mobile landscape and now the maturity of mobile testing, a lot of organizations, I would say the vast majority of organizations I talked to today, are doing some sort of automation testing, or they're moving that direction. With the amount of devices that are out there and the amount of apps that are out there, doing manual testing for a lot of organizations just is no longer scalable. So one of the things that we wanted to do with Kobiton is make automation testing as simple as possible. So currently we integrate with Appium and Selenium. So any of your Appium and Selenium scripts we will support, and we don't require any script modification. We don't require any script upload. You'll simply just take those scripts that you currently have, and instead of pointing them towards an emulator or simulator or towards a local device that's plugged into your machine, you can point those to Kobiton and leverage our larger group of devices ourselves, or leverage the devices that are probably in your own organization that you're not able to use at the moment because they're in an office halfway across the world. So if I come in here, and it's the same thing, this device here, if I hover over this device, I could launch it here, but if I click on this little gear to the right-hand side, it's essentially going to give me the desired capabilities of the device that I want to test on. So as I mentioned earlier, instead of testing it on a local device, you're simply just going to point this to the Kobiton server. It's going to look at my credentials, my API key, and then below that are just the actual definitions of the test. So run in portrait mode. This is a web test, so run on Chrome, and then run on this device. If I come up here to the top left-hand corner, we support various different languages, so Java, C#, Ruby, Python. If I click on one of these, you'll see it'll actually change the format to Python format, and then down below that, currently it's running on Chrome because it's a web test. If I click here, this will now run on a native app, and it wants me to paste in the app URL, or I can grab an app from the Kobiton app repository, and it gives that app an arbitrary number. So from here, I'm going to perform just a very quick test for you guys in a simple IDE that I use called IntelliJ. I'm sure you guys have all seen it at some point in time, but I have a few different scripts that are written. A very simple script that's going to take about 30 seconds to run. But if I come up here to the top right-hand corner, and if I select my Android app test, I can now just remotely run this test on those devices. So I'll go ahead and kick off a couple of these tests. If I come back to the configuration section up here, you'll be able to see that for my Android app test, these are those capabilities that I grabbed earlier. So Android app test, running in portrait mode, taking screenshots, grabbing the app URL here. And you may have noticed earlier wildcards down there, so I could be as specific or as general as I want. So for this, I just said run on any Galaxy device on Android 7. And if I come back out to Kobiton, you notice as well that I ran 2 different sessions. So we do not have any limitations on number of users, and we also don't have any limitation on concurrency either. So I'm able to run as few or as many of those tests as I would like, and I'm able to have as few or as many users using the platform at one time as I would like as well.
Thank you very much, Clay. I'm going to take it over from here. Clay had mentioned a few of the companies that KMS owns, and one of them is Catalan. He talked a little bit about Catalan Studio. I'm going to demonstrate right now the integration between Catalan and Kobiton. One of the challenges for testing today is the ability to, a lot of products out there do record and playback, and Catalan Studio has a desktop software that is a very powerful record and playback capability. So what is in front of you right now is Catalan Studio. And you can see Catalan Studio can be used both for web testing and mobile testing. You can test mobile with a device connected to your laptop, but you can also pull from the devices within Kobiton's stock of 350 devices. So you can see at the top whether you want to record web or mobile. I've actually recorded a video of this, but I'm going to just walk around here a little bit. Here you see that you can choose local devices or Kobiton devices. And when you pull up the Kobiton devices, it has all of the apps that are within your organization. And it has all the devices that are favorite. And that's really important that if you're only seeing a subset of devices and you're not seeing the one that you want to see, it's likely because you haven't favorited it. So they've the API connection between Catalan and Kobiton allows you to specify which devices you want to see in this list. So I've already set this up. When I kick start to record, it'll actually kick off the Catalan page, do what I just did, select the Kobiton devices. I'm going to choose on this case, I'm going to choose the Galaxy S8, kick off the test execution. This is probably one of the parts that takes the longest because it's actually launching the device and there's a lot of communication going on between Catalan and Kobiton at this point. So at this point, you see the device launches. You've got all the elements on the left-hand side here.
Yeah, because when you think about it, when Frank grabs that device, Catalan goes out, says, hey, Kobiton, do you have this Galaxy S8 on 7.0? If it's yes, okay, great. Is it available? If so, let's launch the device. And then at that same time, Frank has selected the Best Buy app. So okay, now we're going to download the Best Buy app. So if you guys are using this integration and you click on, you go, well, hey, what's happening? I mean, there's a lot of things happening in the background. So sometimes it'll be a minute or so, but that's sort of standard. And even when you're downloading an app from the App Store on your own phone, depending on Wi-Fi speed and everything, it just takes a minute.
So when you're after you've launched the app, you can see all of the objects on the left-hand side on that page. The available actions are right up here, and then the app itself is in front of you on the right-hand side. So when you tap on an element, it goes through and executes that on the physical mobile device, sends that all back to your desktop. So here, I'm going to go ahead and it highlights add to cart. I'm going to go ahead and add that item to the cart. And you can also take screenshots within Catalan, just like you can with Kobiton, within the interface. So you can use that in some of your verification steps. So, I'm going to go ahead and look at the ranges and cooktops and wall ovens because that's what I need. And creating a very simple script right here. Once you're done, you can choose where you want to save it into your object repository. I'm going to put it right there and into a new folder called, I think I called it Best Buy. Yeah, there it is, the add to cart. Not the cart, it's the cart. So that gives you a quick overview. Once it's done, you can see all the steps that were executed. And it gives you details on what objects were clicked on when you executed the test. Once that test has been executed, one of the powerful things is you can then take that test and re-execute it against a multitude of devices, Kobiton devices, physical devices. You can play that same test back, and I'll show you how that works successfully here in a minute. So here we're looking at the actual playback. We launched Kobiton in the play button up top here. I'm going to choose the Galaxy S8. And you can see over here all the executions that were performed previously. The test execution, again, you can run this against, we've run it about 50 devices in parallel, but you can run it on essentially all the devices you want to run it in parallel. This goes on and kicks off and executes that same script. Now, a few words of caution here. Okay, I make it look easy. It's not always easy. Sometimes when you launch the app initially, the Kobiton mobile device, the mobile device that you're selecting may not be available. So you may get an error message related to that. Simple solution to that is choose another device and run against that one. The other challenge on the playback side is when it plays back, it doesn't always find the element. So sometimes you have to change the selectors that are provided by Catalan in order to find the element correctly on the page when it's playing back. So there is some work that needs to be done. The Catalan stores all of its test scripts, unlike a lot of the other scripts, stores it all in a table. So it's structured data, which makes it very nice when it comes to impact analysis and understanding when you changed a screen, which tests you need to execute. Very powerful, but it's also, you can interrogate and look at the test execution just through a table interface instead of having to read code. So the test, when it executes, will play back and show you all the tests that were executed and that one just finished. After it finishes, you can go back to what Clay was showing earlier and see that it was successfully completed on the device. We have the test execution here, and you can see the video, the log, the HTTP commands, the logs, all from that test, the replay of the test execution. So if I execute against 50 devices, you'd see 50 videos there. You'd see 50 50 sessions in total. So it's very powerful to be able to see specific issues that occur. And we use this integration to execute our health checks. And I'm going to go into that in a few minutes. But we've executed over 400 health checks against 400 different apps. Drew will go through at the end some of the opportunities that you have for getting a health check performed on your application. But that gives a summary of the Catalan to Kobiton integration.
Drew, there is a question in the chat window. I guess this will go to Frank. You showed Catalan integration, but the viewer is asking about Appium or Selenium because they don't use Catalan.
Yeah, great. Our roots are Appium. We have Appium is the foundation of a lot of what our product does. So we've got deep integration with Appium. You can write your scripts in Appium, run them locally, pointing those using the desired capabilities that Clay showed. You plug those desired capabilities into your Appium script and then kick those off. So on the moving on to CI/CD, we have out on our GitHub repo about 5 different integrations with different CI/CD solutions. So we've integrated with Circle CI, Bamboo, Jenkins, of course, and a few others. So you're welcome to see how you can use our API to plug in Kobiton to your CI/CD pipeline. What I'm going to show you is one of our customers used Kobiton to integrate with Jenkins. So this is an integration between Jenkins. The app was built using React Native, and they were taking about 2 weeks every release because all of their tests were being done manually on physical devices. They made an investment up front to put the automation in place to test against real devices using Appium. So this is an Appium execution. You can see that they've kicked off, they've checked their code in, they've merged it with master. And as part of that merge, it kicks off the CI/CD flow in Jenkins. See, there are 5 steps there. One of the first steps is actually building the application. When that goes, you can see that they just upgraded, the build is kicking off. You can see that in the Jenkins flow that it's running. You can see the full process of building the app. There are a bunch of linters that are run, and they run unit tests before they build the app fully for deployment to Kobiton. Once it's built, it's deployed into Kobiton, and the Appium scripts are executed. You can see over here on the right-hand side the sessions that session just finished. That was the same screen that I was showing you earlier. It's got gone from 26 to 27, so that test finished. You also have full access to, like everything, the video and the logs coming out of that. Trying to think, so that release went out. You can see at the bottom that it finished successfully from the logs, and that the build has been pushed to the App Store. Pretty cool. All that went from 2 weeks to 2 hours. So hugely beneficial to our customer, and they were consuming about 10 person days to do that deploy. It was all automated except when there were issues.
We obviously have the Jenkins integration. I think we also have integrations with Team City, Circle CI, and I may be missing some, and then, or I guess Bamboo as well. And if anyone on the call is using a different CI tool, because of our open REST API, getting these integrations built is something we can do in a fairly quick manner. So
yeah, I was going to go out to our GitHub repo and just look at, yeah, so we've got Team City with Hockey App, Circle CI, and Appium React Native, Travis, Jenkins, Bamboo, Zebia. We're still working on the Zebia one. But yeah, you've got a lot of code examples out there that you can leverage.
And so I'm going to back up really fast, Frank. We did have one question roll in regarding Catalan a second ago, and it's from Marianne. Question is, what happens when Catalan can't find or identify the object indicated or the XPath?
Yeah, so most of the time you can go in manually and specify the XPath with more detailed selectors within Catalan. We have seen some instances where the element is not identifiable. We're working to improve that process, both on the Catalan side and the Kobiton side, so that the record and playback capability is very forgiving to identifying elements. This is a big problem in the industry right now, and there are a few people, including us, Kobiton and Catalan, that are trying to tackle that and make it a lot easier and less painful to play back when you've recorded something. But this shows you the quick flow of what we've delivered, those 400 plus reports. We use Catalan. We do a manual test against a single device. We then play that back using Catalan and pointing to Kobiton real devices. We then extract that data into a format that can produce a health check report that I'm going to go through next. So this health check briefly just shows you a summary page, which is the number of devices that we're tested against, what main issues we found, how many users based on the US market this impacts. So we analyze the specific devices that were impacted. We show you the actual devices that were executed, so you have a detail and a record of what was tested. Any crashes that were identified, we show you the crash, the screen, the logs, and you can click to the video of the screen. Important fact here is that so you can get the full video and the application logs. At 39% of applications tested, we found crashes. So, of the 400, about 160, there were crashes. And, it's interesting to see the responses from people when we tell them we were able to identify the crash and show them the specific cases. The next part of the report is UI issues. So when you have rendering issues because of the resolution of the resolution size of the screen, we're able to identify those and highlight those on in the app. So you can see in this case with the Spiffy app, there was some text like down here at the bottom that was cut off. You said explore as, and these are different levels of severity, but we had about, I don't know the exact number, but about 70% of apps of the 400 apps we've tested. Oh yeah, it's on here. 73% of the apps we tested had significant UI issues. So this is where you can actually see an element that you need to click on one of those 20 devices. The next section of the report is of the health check is the security scan. We partner with a company called Appray, and we we analyze over 60 potential security. That's actually going up next month to over 100. So they've expanded it to look at things like SQL injection and man-in-the-middle attacks, which we will be implementing in health check. Instructions on how to, it's not just what it is, but how to resolve it. And of the 400 apps we tested, 76% had security vulnerabilities in some form or fashion. These are everything from trying to access something that the app shouldn't be accessing to, you're making a phone call and you haven't been granted by the user the rights to make that phone call. We also have a response time analysis as part of that. So every step in the test that we execute, we will show you the average, the plus or minus 1 standard deviation across the 20 devices, and then for each specific device, a detailed report of how that app performed. And then finally, the system metrics. So we're pulling through our API, CPU, battery, network, and memory. It'll give you for every step in the process what the average was during that time and forensic details of key system metrics. So that's an overview of the health check. It's it's a very, like I say, it's a forensic analysis for your application. If you are not aware of any issues, we'll find them.
Couple of questions here, and we will go ahead and open it up for a general Q&A session. So please feel free to submit any as they come to you. First question here looks like it's going to be for Clay, and it says, does Kobiton have customizable plans? And if so, what are the options for customizing Kobiton?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have together sort of some package plans, but yeah, as I mentioned earlier, with the local cloud and the private cloud and the public cloud, we can really do any mixture of those to some extent, but yeah, plans are fully customizable with those 3 options, along with health checks for your different applications that can be run on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis or whatever we together deem as best for your organization.
See, it looks like the next question is, what is the maximum number of devices health check can be run against? Frank?
The most we have run it against has been about 80. That's because when you get to about 80, you're getting up around 96, 97% of the market. But we can run it against all 100. We have about 200 unique device operating system combinations. So we can run against all 200. That will get you above 99% market coverage.
Looks like the next question again for you, Frank, is how often do you recommend teams utilize health check in their delivery cycles?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is our customers are using it as a check. So it's augmenting their existing process. Before they ship something out the door, they want to have a health check run, and if that release is done every 2 weeks, it's a great way to have an audit and something that you can archive to say, what did my application do before I shipped it out? You've got a full, thorough set of videos, set of logs. If you have an issue with your application after we've run the health check, and it's an area that we've already covered, you can go back to the specific point in the video and see, why wasn't this found in health check? We'll help you reproduce the problem that a customer raises, because that's on us to make sure that we reproduce those errors.
Yeah, Drew, we've even seen some customers use it as well for not compliance isn't the word I'm talking about, but essentially setting the parameters for which their app works. So, some companies say, this is my app, it's sort of guaranteed to work on this segment of devices. If you use a device outside of that, it may or may not work. So we've seen organizations use it for that as well, because we'll run it across 50 devices. They'll essentially take that list of devices, or at least take the OS ranges and those manufacturers, and say, we guarantee our app is going to work on Samsung, LG, OnePlus and Pixel from Android 4 to 8. But if anything falls outside of that, they won't necessarily guarantee it, but it's something that they can look into. So they've used it for those purposes as well.
What would you recommend as the best hybrid solution for a small to mid-sized organization? Some devices in-house, multiple locations, and limited testing resources.
Yeah, so specific question, and I'm going to probably give a general answer. The general answer is, it really depends on the organization. It depends on release cycles. It depends on the, how important their app or their mobile site is to them. So a little bit of that depends, but typically what I would recommend there is, if you already have local devices and you have dispersed offices, I would recommend, connecting those devices you already have. You've already made an investment in those devices. So therefore, why not share them amongst all of your users? Because a lot of times people have offices in the US and the UK and in Asia, and a single device can be used 24 hours a day instead of today it's getting used for 6 or 8 hours. So I would say connect those devices, and then also most organizations will then purchase a segment of our public cloud, or at least a bucket of public cloud minutes, because as they go through and do their typical testing before release, they'll test on their own devices, and then right before release, if they don't utilize something like a health check, their QA department can go out and test it across 100 Kobiton devices to make sure nothing comes up. And also they give their support team access to that larger pool of devices as well. So when the support team, someone comes up and says, your app isn't working on a LG K7, they probably don't have one sitting around, but they can utilize Kobiton at that point. So a lot of times automation, regression, things like that are run against the local devices, and then they will use our public cloud to expand their coverage before release or during support cases.
Can you explain the nuances in choosing between private cloud and local cloud solution?
Yeah, sure. No, that's an easy one. So private and local cloud for an end user are going to show up very similar. So they're going to be in a private section that has the name of your organization and those devices. So for a normal end user, they're going to show up very similar. The real difference is on the back end. The local devices are going to be devices that the organization has procured and they're hosting at their own physical location, whether it's a data center or their office. Private devices, Kobiton is going to procure them, and we're going to host them in our data center. So those are really the two main differences there. But for an end user, they're all very similar because they're private to that organization.
And just for clarity, regardless of whether you're doing private or local, and despite having multiple locations, all of that test data is available to all of your testers at all times, correct?
Correct. So in that sessions tab that I showed earlier, and Frank went into briefly, that's where all of your test session data lives, whether it's on a local device or a private device or a public device. All that information is there and it's accessible to your users.
So with that said, again, thank you everyone for joining today. We look forward to the next time we can host you on a webinar, and have a great one. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Drew.